Mike Douglas is Michigan's retirement coach.
Imagine, if you will, getting $11 million. And then 5 years later, you've got nothing to show for it. Just imagine, if you will, because this is happening. And, well, it's not. I think that if we're going to speak to the nature of pro athletes, this is obviously a very small percentage of the population. And there's a lot of unique circumstances that happen to professional athletes. But still, we can all learn lessons from other people's circumstances. So that's what we're going to break down here a little bit today on Michigan's Retirement Coach podcast. This is Michigan's Retirement Coach, certified financial planner, Mike Douglas. I'm Heather Branch, here to ask Mike about how we can do better than basketball players seem to be doing. Not knocking basketball players. In fact, I think that there's actually more and more conversation amongst the different professional branches of athletes as far as to better educate the athletes, because a lot of these guys come from nothing. And how can you hand a person, a 20-year-old, $10 million who's coming from nothing and expect him to know what to do with it? So like there's as I was saying, there's a lot that's involved in that story. But the average NBA player makes over $11 million a year. And apparently 60% of players go broke within 5 years of their retirement. Why does this happen? So Shaquille O'Neal, who we all know is very much not broke. This man's got his hand in some business. This is what he says. This is what he says happens.
You know, sometimes you just get so much money and you forget. Like if you got a 5-year deal worth $100 million, you're making 20. If you spend like 20 in the first year, you be like, you know what? I got another 20 coming. That's how guys are thinking. I always tell them, don't think about what's going on now. Think about what has to go on in the future.
Because the other thing is for athletes, they most of them, their career ends in 5 to 10 years of playing, and they got to make that money last and they can go on to live very long, healthy lives. So for any of us, we could never imagine having $11 million and having it be gone in 5 years. Still, people that if you've saved $500,000, you see this every day, Mike. If you've saved $500,000, if you've saved $5 million, the same concern. I'm going to run out of money. How do I make sure I don't run out of money? So how does this kind of mistake happen to everyday retirees? And more importantly, how do we prevent it?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things we want to learn from here. Number one, high income hides bad habits. So when you have a high level of income coming in, and this is not exclusive to athletes by any means, but when you have a high level of income, money just always shows up. So you don't really live on a budget. You don't really live on below your means. So again, not for everybody, but for quite a few, that's what happens. So I see it with CEOs. I see it with kind of high C-suite people who are in different companies and say, oh, well, you know, I make, you know, $600,000 a year and their retirement savings is $4 million. I'm going, wait a minute. How do you, and $4 million is nothing to sneeze at, but if you're getting $600,000 a year of income for years, why don't we have more in savings? Well, because they were living on it and using it. And then when they retire, they have to figure out a way to live at a lower level of income than they were. So high income hides bad habits. Okay. Whereas when some people come in and they've got great habits, they say, I never earned more than $120,000 a year. And they come in with $3 or $4 million.
Yeah.
So who was more successful with their retirement? The guy who made $600,000, the guy. So it's a no brainer. So those with good habits will save and do good things. But at the same time, a lot of those are taught and caught, and like they're around people or they learn it, and it's really, really important. Versus, and Shaq, I've heard Shaq talk about this multiple times, where he says, when you're around people, especially when you're a younger player coming in, and the veterans are making max contract money, and you are making rookie contract money, and you want to run with them, but you can't because you don't have that kind of money. So you may have $3 or $4 million. They are making $20 million a year. And you're trying to compare cars, houses, and lifestyles with them.
They've got endorsement deals and all other kinds of things that you don't have. Yeah.
Right. And they've been doing this income for 8 to 10 years already. So they've learned how to manage it. So hopefully that's one of the big ones. Yeah. And so that's one issue. High income hides bad habits. But good habits are successful regardless of income. That's another way to think of it. Number two is that you have to have a game plan for after the paychecks stop. So for an athlete, you know that you have a limited window to make a ridiculous amount of money that will change your family for generations if you do it properly. However, as you mentioned, Heather, and you didn't say it in these words, but here's what I think of all the time.
Okay.
God forbid I was given real money at 20 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
I like to think, I would have invested in, there's that great Friends episode where they're trying to win the lottery.
Yeah.
And they're all like fantasizing and romanticizing what they'll do. I'm going to buy a helicopter and this and that. We're going to go up to Napa, do all these things. And Ross says, I'm going to invest it in very low yield bonds.
Yep.
And it's a great, funny moment to think if I could just throw this in at 3%, I could live forever on this money, but I wouldn't have at 20 years old. So I would have been more like that kid from the movie Blank Check. Preston Waters was his name in the movie, where he finds a blank check, or he gives given a blank check and he lives this mansion lifestyle. That's more likely what would happen.
Right.
So for these people, you have to have a game plan for what happens after this window ends. For retirees, the window is the day you retire. I save over the years. And again, most of us don't have the problem of, I got this $11 million a year for 5 years. How do I live on it? But instead it's I've been being paid by an employer for all these years. And then the day they stop paying me, how do I still live the life I want to live? You need a game plan for that. So for the high net worth or the high income short termers, you have to invest. And it's funny, we also had Shaq on the podcast conversations before, because he talks about whenever he'd get these big checks, he'd buy an annuity. And that way he would have these laddered out. I get more income that kicks in at all these different ages. So, or he would buy businesses. He would buy annuities and businesses were his big two things,
right?
Which is very interesting. So very forward thinking. You want to have a down the line thought process for your money, because the paychecks will stop someday. Now, for most of us, it's age 60 to 65. For athletes, it's age 35, maybe 40 if you're lucky. So you need a strategy for that. Saving money and investing money is an offense, not a defense. It is a strategy for the future to be able to attack and to do good things. So number 3, taxes and timing ends careers early. Here's my notes on that. Athletes lose fortunes to taxes and bad timing. And that's one of the things he talks about in the quote, right? Well, I get this much, but then by the time I pay taxes and the time I do this, time I do that, my agent fee, it's all really nickel and dime way lower. I saw another podcast with a couple pro basketball players who are all retired, and they were talking about money. And he said specifically, he's like, everybody around you sees that you signed for $20 million for the year. And then they don't realize 10 million goes to taxes. And then 2 million goes to your agent because they get 10%. And then this, and then that. And then now you're down to living on $7 million.
But it's big difference. Yeah.
It's a fraction of 20.
Yeah.
And the people around you think you made 20 million.
Yep.
So it's not what it appears. And at the same time, you have to live on the net. Even pro athletes have to deal with the fact that, golly, they just took 50% of my money. My agent took 10%. So now I'm sitting here with, this much money to live off of. And the timing of that matters. Where you are, where you live, what your tax brackets are. When you retire, the timing of taxes matters. We talk a ton about investing, building tax-free retirement plans, doing Roth conversions, doing long-term capital gains or tax harvesting. We talk a lot about different strategies because you have some discretion over when you pay taxes. So you should pay it to your advantage, not the government's. I just think that if we don't deal with taxes, whenever you hear like a pro athlete who gets into tax trouble, right? You're like, how in the world could they do it? They have so much money.
Because they have so much money and they probably have a lot of cooks in the kitchen, a lot of advisors and hands in. That I do. My heart goes out. When you hear about a famous person who's getting dragged to the mud on taxes, my heart goes out to them because I'm like, they had no freaking idea.
Yeah. And again, their actual job is to be the best in the world at one thing.
Yep.
So where do you think they commit most of their energy? To being the best in the world at that one thing.
Yeah.
Not taxes.
Right.
So none of them are expected to be the best in the world at taxes. They're expected to be able to be the best in the world at their sport. And that requires a lot of time, energy, and effort. Yeah. So I just think that as it looks at retirees, you have windows to make money. And once that window ends, you're responsible for your own paychecks. How do I get that? What's the best way? Do I use preferred stocks and dividends? Do I use a 60-40 portfolio? Do I use an annuity? Do I use real estate? Those are the questions you need to answer. You have to have a game plan for what happens when that ends. You also have to realize that maybe you've had high income and you've had bad habits that you don't realize. So that would be a good thing to really deal with and have a conversation about how to build good habits. That's one that often gets slid under the rug and nobody notices because you make a bunch of money, but have good habits. And then lastly, taxes and timing are important. when I retire matters. How much I pay in taxes, when I pay taxes, those things matter. So a retirement plan is more than just, do I buy an annuity or not? Or when do I take my Social Security? Mm-hmm. It's the networking of all these things. And just like pro athletes who have a lot to deal with, so do you. As a retiree, you have a lot to deal with. But the difference is you're dealing with my Social Security benefits, my Medicare premiums. I have my kids and grandkids that I want to love and bless with money. I have a lifestyle that I want to live in retirement. I want to snowbird. I want to travel. I want to do these things. There's all these things that have to happen.
Yeah.
And how do I coordinate them all to make sure that one, the IRS doesn't come after me, and two, I don't over donate to taxes. So that's all about building a good strategy. And that's why we have these conversations.
Mike and his team having these conversations with folks every single day, helping you to do better with your money, your savings, living the life that you want to live in retirement. If you have questions about these things or other things that you have heard Mike talk about in past episodes, we're here for you. Visit us at michigansretirementcoach.com. We also have links posted in the show notes. Be better than some of these unfortunate athletes have done and not have any money after 5 years of living that. It's good. It's good while it lasts, though, isn't it?
Good
it's
living.
fun.
It's good living.
It's fun for a minute. But of course, what you want is you want to be living well throughout your retirement. Mike and his team here to help you figure that out in a plan that's customized to you and your goals. So let's begin that conversation. Visit us at michigansretirementcoach.com.
Thanks for listening to Michigan's Retirement Coach with Mike Douglas. To learn more, visit michigansretirementcoach.com.
Michael Douglas is an investment advisor representative of Stewards Wealth Planning, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if Michael Douglas is licensed in your state, please call 517-323-7526. Stewards Wealth Planning, LLC is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Michael B. Douglas, NPN number 9650939.